Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Jamie. Let's get to crafting. For this first DIY, I'm using two of Dollar Tree's 8x10 canvas frames, and I'm going to be making a shadow box. Now, I know that Dollar Tree sells shadow boxes, but I can never seem to find any. So if you are lucky enough to actually find one of these shadow boxes, then if you want to recreate this DIY, then by all means go ahead and use one of those, but I decided to craft one myself. So as you see here, I am just removing each of the canvases from the frames with a box cutter and some scissors, and I don't bother removing the staples because they're going to get hidden here in just a second. Once the canvases have been removed, I'm going to go ahead and sandwich these two frames together with some hot glue, and I'm going to have the staples facing each other on the inside, so now you're not going to be able to see them. So the next thing I do here is I take the one of the canvases, and I'm going to just go ahead and trim those edges down because this is going to be the backdrop to our shadow box. So now I'm just going in with some spackling to fill in those spaces in between so it looks like one solid piece. And then I just let this sit overnight. Now that the spackle has had time to dry completely and it is white, no longer pink, I'm just going in with my sanding sponge from Dollar Tree and I'm just going to smooth out those edges. This project was very messy and it was time to bust out the ladybug. The next thing I do is I go in with some Waverly Antique Wax and I just go ahead and give my frame one coat all around. Now I'm going to go ahead and attach my canvas using some hot glue, and I use the inside of the canvas for the inside of my shadow box, if that makes any sense. So the part that you would normally paint on is going to be facing the back. I'm curious if any of you have been able to guess by the thumbnail and by the song that is playing, if anybody has been able to guess what Christmas song I chose for my DIYs. If any of you guessed Carol the Bells, you would be correct. So I went ahead and printed out Carol the Bells sheet music on some regular old printer paper, got out my ruler, traced some lines, and then cut it down to size. This is absolutely my favorite Christmas song. It has been for a long time. Every time I hear it, it always gives me goosebumps. And on top of that, I have heard two of my girls sing it in their Christmas choirs before, and every time I hear it, it just makes me so happy. So for me, it is not Christmas without Carol the Bells. So now I decided I wanted to stain my paper, and so I'm just pouring some coffee in a bowl, and yes, that is a Dollar Tree fall mug that I had. And I'm just going to go ahead and crinkle up my paper and just let this sit in the coffee for about a minute or two, and then I'm going to lay it on a towel to dry. After it has dried completely, I go ahead and just use some hot glue to attach it to my canvas. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take one of these cloths from Dollar Tree. I've already had trimmed this down once already, as this is in the automotive section, and I'm going to cut a chunk off of this, and I'm going to hot glue it to the bottom of the shadow box to mimic snow. And then I'm just taking some of these little village figurines, and I'm going to take a couple of those to make a scene. Last thing I do is take some jute twine, make a little bow, and hot glue it to the top of the shadow box. This video is part of the Christmas song DIY collaboration hosted by Leeny over at Krafty Leeny. I'm going to leave her channel down in the description box below, as well as the playlist to our beautiful Christmas choir. Now back to the video. For this second DIY, I'm using one of Dollar Tree's signs from the summer that is in the shape of a mason jar. I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to pop off the little strawberry and the leaves, and I'm going to save those for next summer because these are so cute and I could totally use these for a DIY. So I'm just going to set those aside and I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to give this 2 coats of paint using the Crimson Chalk Paint by Waverly. Next thing I do is I cut a chunk of this foam core board that I had from a previous DIY in the fall, and I'm just going to use some my box cutter and just cut a chunk off of this, and I'm going to hot glue it to the back of my mason jar. Now, yes, there is contact paper on this because I was going to use it for one thing and I changed my mind. This happens in the DIY world. And anyway, so just ignore that part. So yes, I'm just going to hot glue this foam piece to my mason jar, and you'll see why in just a second. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to use some spackling. Now you can use caulking if you have it. I did not, but if you have it, you can use it. I'm just using what I got. Did I already say that? Anyway, so I'm just going to fill up my Ziploc bag full of this spackling, kind of making like a piping bag like you would for like frosting a cake or something. And I'm just going to be putting that over the top of the foam core board and a little bit onto the mason jar. This is basically going to look like a mug topped with whipped cream and some sprinkles, and you know, to make it a cup of good cheer. I also quickly realized that I put way too much spackling on this and this was never going to dry, so I had to scoop as much as I could off of here and put it back in the bucket. So I picked up these holly berries from the Target dollar spot for just $1, and I thought this would be perfect topper for my cup of good cheer. So I just took it out of the packaging, cut the string off, and then just kind of smushed it into the spackling while it was still wet. As you can see, it is still pink. And then I just took some of these like sprinkles or confetti whatever, I don't know. My daughter had these, and I thought this would be a really cute topper for sprinkles on our Christmas mug, and so I just kind of smushed those into place as well. The next thing I do is I just take my pencil and I freehand the words "Good Cheer" on the front of my mug. And then I take my white chalk paint marker from Dollar Tree and then I just go over those words with that. So I apologize that my camera was not recording when I thought it was when I did this, but I just took some of the pumpkin acrylic paint from Apple Barrel and just the end of one of my paintbrushes, and then I just did these little dots all just down the one side of my mug, and I just thought this gave it a really nice touch and made it not so flat looking. And then I just took some cardboard that I had on hand and I just cut a couple of chunks out, hot glued them together, and then hot glued that on the back of my mug so that it could stand freely. Now this last DIY is so super simple. I had picked this up over at the Target dollar spot for just $3, and I ended up getting a stencil that says Merry Christmas over at Hobby Lobby. It says $2.99 on there, but it was 50% off, so good deal on that. And I decided that I was just going to use the stencil on this piece, and I wanted to get a darker red. I didn't have anything darker than the crimson red, so I just took a little bit of the crimson and a little bit of the black, kind of mixed it up a little bit until I got the shade that I wanted, and I just go ahead and apply the paint to my stencil. The last thing I do for this project is just hot glue some of these bells to one of the corners of this, and this project was done. I want to thank you all so much for being here and for watching. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and to check out Krafty Leeny's channel and check out that playlist down below. It'll be in the description box. Y'all have a wonderful, blessed day. Bye!